and welcome to Frost Over the World. Later in the programme, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh and the brilliant actor Simon Callow. But first, Israel and Palestine. It's now over a month since the Palestinian Papers were leaked to Al Jazeera, but the consequences are still being felt throughout the region. Believing that the leak came from his office, Palestinian chief negotiator Saeb Erekat resigned and the Palestinian negotiation unit has been disbanded. There is now even rumours that the Palestinians will be the next to revolt against their government, not the other lot. And it is suggested that any hopes for a peace deal with Israel in the near future are well and truly over. Joining me here in the studio is a man who spent many hours across the table from Saeb Erekat, the former Israeli chief negotiator, Dr. Oded Eran. Welcome. You spent many hours in negotiation, a lot of them with Saeb Erekat and so on, and now, as we hear, people are saying there is no more hope for negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians. No more hope now. What do you think?
I think that for the next 2 years, unless we find a new formula for the negotiations or an objective, other than the full comprehensive treaty between the two sides, we are stuck because the Palestinians have to go to elections, or long overdue. The Americans are already begin their cycle of presidential elections in 2 years, and the campaign is already on its way. Israel itself might go to elections because of domestic political crisis. And so, under these circumstances, I don't see chances for a full, comprehensive peace treaty between us and the Palestinians.
For 2 years?
For almost 2 years, or full 2 years.
A full 2 years before that?
Right. Unless we, as I said, we find an alternative, which, as the papers say, and I have been advocating it for more than 2 years, is a partial, incremental sort of way of getting there. It is clear that one important and only solution is the two-state solution. And you have to get there, but not through this comprehensive negotiations, which I don't think can take place now, but through incremental steps on the ground.
And in that situation, what would be the first step? I mean, how would that work?
Well, give you an example.
Yeah.
The West Bank is divided by the Oslo agreements into 3 areas. Area A, where the Palestinians have full authority, civilian and security. Area B, where the powers are divided, we have security. Area C is where Israel has full powers, security and civilian powers. Now, I'm saying Area C is 60% of the West Bank. This area was designated for security purposes and the settlements. I'm saying that Israel can survive and not take major security risks, even if it passes to the authority, the Palestinian Authority, half of this area. If I were the Prime Minister of Israel, I would be rightly so hesitant to take, given the turmoil in the region, hesitant to take long-term security risks. But I think that if you take minor risks on the way to the implementation of the two-state solution, you are really pushing the process forward, and you give a chance to the peace process.
And we've heard that Mr. Netanyahu has been impatient of the late with a not normally thought of as a great progressive in the area of negotiations with the Palestinians, but he had, in this case, he's wishing there was progress and so on. Would he therefore countenance what you've just suggested?
Well, as I said, there are reports that he is now thinking of doing it, that he wants to deliver a major speech on this issue, probably in the U.S. Congress, if the president will be willing to see him in, the president of the United States will be willing to see him in Washington. But the venue is unimportant. The question in my mind is whether even if he goes forward and takes this option, whether the Palestinians are ready to do this, and I'm not so sure that this is the case. And secondly, the international community has to really espouse this idea, because the international community, if you look at the recent statement of the quartet, they are still having this hangover over a comprehensive solution in our time, meaning today, and I just don't see that happening.
And we do seem to feel, whereas when President Obama came in, he was obviously going to focus on Israel and Palestine a great deal, as any president would state he was about to do. But there is a sense, both in the United States and here, for instance, that in a way the Americans have lost their momentum.
I think so. I think that the administration erred in the beginning when they focused on the settlements as a way of getting the solutions. And I think that this was erroneous and it was a mistake. And it may be now too late to rectify it. But it's worth a try. I think that the administration may now be in a position when they say to themselves, well, we are going into this presidential elections, and there are difficulties in the Arab world, there are priorities in trying to stabilize, for example, the rest of the Arab world. So they may shift the focus from the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to something else in the region. And so
something else?
Well, you know, you have to now to see how the American interests are protected, yes, in the Gulf area, in the Mediterranean. If you look at this, this has been a major shift in the region, and it may be damaging the long-term security interest of the United States, as the case may be for Israel itself.
And one Palestinian said to us, the Palestinians are unwilling to enter into serious negotiations, and therefore we should examine the idea of a long-term interim arrangement. In light of what you were saying, a long-term interim arrangement, does that fit in with your plan?
Absolutely. I think that as an Israeli, I would like to see the two-state solution alive, kept alive. It will be a major disaster if this option is abandoned or lost. And therefore, given the fact that I think that it will be impossible for Israel to take a decision on the final borders today, given all these upheavals in the Arab world, then we should at least go for the interim on the way towards the two-state solution. So I think that this is the only option. And
do you think, we hear that he's still active, although he resigned, do you think Saeb Erekat, the central figure of the Palestinian negotiating team for so long, do you think that Saeb Erekat will have a part to play in the negotiations whenever they start? I have no doubt, because first of all, he is the collective memory of the negotiations, yes, on the Palestinian side. He has been in every negotiation, in every round, whether they were on the interim or the full or whatever. And he is a very able and skilled negotiator. The Palestinians cannot give up these assets, and so I guess that in one capacity or another, he will be involved in the negotiations in the future. Well, I'm sure that will be good news for the negotiations. Anyway, we'll see if it is. Thank you very much for being with us, Dr. Eran, and being so clear and on the ball. And we thank you very much, and we look forward to returning to get your impressions a few months from now. Thanks for having me. Thank you. Cricket fans from all over the world are focusing on Bangladesh at the moment, the joint hosts with India and Sri Lanka of the Cricket World Cup. The tournament is providing welcome relief there in the country, where the headlines are usually dominated by corruption and political upheaval. So it's the perfect time to speak to Sheikh Hasina, the Bangladeshi Prime Minister. She spent months under house arrest in 2007 and 2008 at the instigation of the then military-backed government. Upon her release, she promptly won the election at the end of 2008. I met her again during her recent visit to London. Sheikh Hasina, it's a joy to have you with us again. Since we were last talking here, it's been a busy way in many ways. You spent how long in solitary confinement before you returned to power?
11 months, yes. Remember, at first they filed case against me, warrant issue warrant. Then when I decided to go back, then they prevented me, the caretaker government, Fakhruddin government. So I forced to go back, and I received tremendous support from you and all our overseas friends, and also inside the country people supported, so they couldn't stop me. When I returned home, and after that they arrested me. So when they decided to give election, then they released me and other leaders, and the election was held in 2008, December, in the month of December 2008. So through that election people voted for us, then I formed government.
Right. And the opposition is Khalida Zia.
Yes.
The two of you have had a titanic struggle for years, haven't you? Does it still go on, or do you ever have tea together? No, it's
Listen,
tougher than that. Yeah.
No, it's a multi-party system, and each party has its own ideology, own way of working things. So definitely the differences is there, but we struggle for democracy together, no doubt about it.
And of course, the other thing that's happened since you were last here is you lost your husband too, didn't you?
Oh yes, it's very sad.
What happened?
Because when they arrested, he was sick, and when they arrested me, they misbehaved with him. Since then, he became very sick, and as because I was in captivity, actually, then he was in the hospital. So after election, he became more, sick. So because of the illness, he died.
How has it changed your life?
Well, I am busy with my people, my work, but yes, I am alone. The loneliness is there,
Yeah.
but still, as because I am devoted myself to my people, so I am working, I am keeping myself busy with people's work.
And everybody writes about corruption in terms of several countries, but in terms of Bangladesh. Is that the biggest problem you face in government?
Well, the previous government, during BNP government, they indulged in corruption, nepotism, and also they encouraged the terrorism. That is really very big problem. But I can tell you one thing, since I formed government, nobody could accuse any of my ministers or any corruption. But the corruption, as because our country run by the military ruler, military dictator, so corruption become a big problem, no doubt about it. But we have been trying our best to face this situation and to work for our development, and we are doing it very well, because during our last economic fiscal year, our annual development project, we have implemented about 92%. It is a very good progress, very good progress. So we are doing well.
And how much of a problem is the Islamic extremists in Bangladesh?
Listen, the extremists are extremists. The extremists or terrorists, they have no religion, no border. Our government, we have taken very strong stand against terrorist activists. So we will not allow our soil to use anybody for doing any kind of terrorist activities. Though our people in general, they are very much secular minded, open minded, they are very generous people. So we are working together, because the terrorists always create problem for development, and I am really fortunate and I appreciate my people, they understand that, so they never give any kind of support to them.
Have you had your life threatened in the time you've been in the hurly-burly of Bangladeshi politics?
Several times.
Really?
Several times. Several times I faced this problem. And you know, the recent one in 2004, 21st August, there was a grenade attack, but I was survived, but 22 people died. So the threat is there, but when you devoted yourself for the right cause of a people, you shouldn't think about it. God has given me life, Allah has given me life. When time will come, I have to go. Yeah. But as long as I am alive, I will work for my people. So I don't care for that.
That's really interesting. It's great to have you with us again, Sheikh Hasina. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Most people will instantly remember him as Gareth from the award-winning romantic comedy Four Weddings and a Funeral. But Simon Callow is not a man of one part, he's a man of many parts. Among his many roles, he's portrayed Oscar Wilde, Charles Dickens, and so on. Last year, Simon brought Shakespeare to life in his one-man show, The Man from Stratford. This year, he's one of the playwright's characters in Peter Hall's production of The Twelfth Night. Simon Callow's here right now. And had you always wanted to play Sir Toby Belch, which you're doing in Twelfth Night, or have you in fact played it before?
No, I've not played it before, and I'd never had the slightest desire to play it. And everybody who has played it before told me, don't touch it. Yeah. It's a poisoned chalice, they said, because you just basically are part of a double act with Andrew Aguecheek in the first half, and in the second half you just have to motor the play, make the plot work all the time. So, but nonetheless, I thought, still, it's a great, great play, and it's a part that everybody has an image of, Sir Toby Belch. It's so wonderfully set up.
It's a clear, even Falstaff, in another case, has a feeling that you feel he's large, and just from the name.
Exactly, and belongs to our imagination. He's on our landscape. But in fact, of course, I underestimated the playwright completely. It's a fantastic part. It's been immensely thrilling to grapple with him. He's basically, Shakespeare, so often, as in, for example, King Lear, he anticipated all our understanding of dementia and Alzheimer's. It's uncanny how perfectly well delineated that is in Lear. And in Toby Belch, he's written an alcoholic. And it's absolutely brilliant. Every aspect of alcoholism is there. The inner anger, the sense of impotence and rage, the maudlin sentimentality, the physical recklessness, the intermittent sense of omnipotence that the alcohol gives you, all of that. It's all there as if it was a case study.
Oh, that makes it sound even better than one imagined. A very good thing. Tell me, what does that mean is your remaining greatest priority among Shakespeare that you would like to play?
I've played Falstaff twice already, but now I must play him again. I long to absolutely conquer that part because it's the greatest part, I think, that Shakespeare ever wrote. I'd love to have a crack at Shylock and at King Lear, and I'm at the age now to do it, but oddly enough, I've got a very scrappy record as a Shakespearean up till now. I've played Orlando in As You Like It at the National Theatre. I played Titus Andronicus when I was 27, which is not advisable, really, and I played Richard III on the radio, which is a challenge all of its own, because how do you suggest physical deformity on the radio? I'm not sure I completely won that one, but anyway.
But they couldn't tell, really.
No. But what I have done a great deal of, is Shakespeare's sonnets. And when I was at the National in 1979, when we were doing Amadeus, at the same time as doing Amadeus, I did all of Shakespeare's sonnets, 157 sonnets, on one afternoon, which is, I think, unprecedented, and I hope nobody else ever attempts it again, because it nearly killed me. But it bred in me a lifelong love of these poems, which I think are the core of Shakespeare.
Did you expect Amadeus to be the huge hit it became?
Yeah, absolutely. It was rather like Four Weddings and a Funeral. The moment one read the script, one just knew this has inbuilt success, unless we completely mess it up. And Amadeus, of course, had a number of advantages. It was a play by Peter Schaffer, who had just written Equus and Royal Hunt of the Sun, and was one of the most acclaimed dramatists on the face of the earth. It was about Mozart, which is a perennially interesting subject, and Paul Scofield was playing Salieri. So again, as with the Twelfth Night, which I'm doing at the moment, which is sold out immediately, so did Amadeus, almost instantly.
And of course, Four Weddings and a Funeral is another Well, I suppose that's the thing you're most famous for. It may not be your favourite role, I don't know, is it?
I loved it. I love playing Gareth. I think it was a very remarkable piece of writing. In fact, the whole film is they're very hard to bring off, these romantic comedies. I think you could compare it in the sense of the chemistry being perfect with Casablanca. It's one of those things which lots of people had written films in the genre of Casablanca, but the many authors of Casablanca just hit the nail on the head with that one. Casting was perfect, everything about it worked. Same thing with Four Weddings and a Funeral. It just, it all clicked in a way that is impossible to predict.
And you were the funeral.
I was the funeral, which was rather striking and daring.
We could therefore say you were in the title role.
I am indeed in the title role.
And Amadeus was a huge hit, and Four Weddings, well, that was a different form of fame, really, wasn't it? I mean, it was so global on film, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and remains, because of the world in which we now live, DVD has transformed the way people know films. Because in the old days, if you wanted to see your favourite film, you'd have to wait patiently until it came round again. Then television started reviving films. But with DVD, you can watch your favourite film whenever you want to see it. So I keep running into people who have seen Four Weddings and a Funeral 50 times.
Oh, 50 times. Not
50
just
times.
seen it. As if it's
just seen it, but also seen it 50 times. And
you
know, that means to say that they know it a lot better than I do. I've seen it once, you know.
One of the other things for which you're famous was your declaration about homosexuality, of course. Are you looking back, you're proud and glad you did that?
Very, very much so. And of course, Four Weddings and a Funeral was part of all of that.
Yeah.
Because that character broke a whole lot of stereotypes about being gay. And at the time, Four Weddings and a Funeral, remember, was made at the height of the AIDS, kind of the first wave of AIDS.
Horror of it.
A horror of it, and it was a wonderful thing to have a gay character who died of something other than AIDS. Yeah. What he died of was Scottish dancing. Yeah. And I've always thought of the film as a government health warning against the perils of Scottish dancing.
That's right. So you gave up Scottish dancing.
I gave up Scottish dancing
as a result of that,
yes.
of that particular role. So that in the general field across, do you get the same satisfaction from doing all the various things, the directing, or do they give you a different fulfillment or pleasure?
Yes, they're all very different. I mean, I write a lot. I've
yes, you do.
17 books now, and that, of course, is a solitary pleasure. Yeah. The book is only as good as you can make it. Nobody else has anything to do with it. I mean, it's nice to have the input of an editor, but if you're directing a play, then you're dependent on the whole group of people that you've assembled. So it's critical that you get the right people. Being a director, especially directing a movie, is an area of absolute responsibility, and I've only directed one film, which was The Ballad of the Sad Café, which was distinguished by having Rod Steiger and Vanessa Redgrave in the cast, and it was not altogether a success, and in the end I have to take the responsibility for that. I have to say, well, you know, I was in charge and I didn't quite get it right. Very often in the theatre, when you're acting in a play, things do go wrong and it's not your fault at all.
No. So what is the most essential quality that an actor needs?
Shamelessness, I suppose, in a sense, but I mean that in quite a deep sense, that you have to be prepared to show a lot about what goes on inside you, and you have to want to communicate it. You have to need, actually, to communicate it. It's not enough to want to. You've really got to need to share with people what you've understood about the human situation. That's a sort of compelling feeling inside me, as I now, having done just Toby Belch, I really want to tell people what I found out about Toby Belch and what in working on Toby Belch I found out about myself. You know.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on this latest triumph, and here's to the next time.
Indeed.
Our thanks to Simon Callow, that man of many talents, for joining us, and that's it for this programme, unfortunately. My thanks to all of our guests, of course. Do join us again for the next Frost Over the World, but until then, goodbye for now.